Long ago, in the age of myth and gods, the Greeks and Trojans had been locked in a bitter war for 10 long years. The Greeks had come to Troy to retrieve Helen, the queen whose beauty launched 1,000 ships. But the city of Troy, with its high walls and strong, brave warriors, had resisted every siege, every clever raid, and every challenge the Greeks could offer. The walls seemed impregnable, and even mighty warriors like Achilles and Odysseus failed to bring the Trojans down. Odysseus wanted the war to end, as he had a wife and children waiting at home. Known for his intelligence and cunning, as well as his strength, Odysseus devised a plan. He proposed that the Greek army pretend to give up the war and sail away, leaving behind only a mysterious offering, a giant wooden horse. The magnificent horse was hollow inside, just large enough to hold around 30 or 40 of the Greeks' finest soldiers, including Odysseus, Menelaus, and Neoptolemus. They decided the rest of the Greek army would hide out of sight behind a nearby island. That evening the Greeks left the wooden horse outside the gates of Troy and sailed away. When the Trojans awoke and saw the empty shoreline and the strange wooden statue, they were puzzled. After 10 long years of war, the Greeks had simply packed up and left without warning. Some Trojans suspected it was a trap. They didn't trust the Greeks. But others believed it was an offering to Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare. They saw the horse as a gift that should be brought into the city to celebrate their victory and the end of the war. They wanted to bring the beautiful horse into the city as a trophy to celebrate their win. However, Laocoön, the Trojan priest who served the god Poseidon, warned them, shouting, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." Suspicious of the wooden horse, he prepared to hurl his spear into it. But just then 2 sea serpents slithered out from the waves, wrapped around Laocoön and his sons, and crushed them to death before slithering away. The Trojans, terrified that this was an awful omen, believed Laocoön must have offended the gods. If the gods were offended and killed Laocoön when he tried to throw a spear into the horse, then surely that meant that the horse was indeed a sacred gift. He had been a Trojan priest, serving the god Poseidon, and now Poseidon's sea snakes had crushed him, which seemed like strong evidence that the gods were offended by his treatment of this horse. Everyone agreed it must be a gift after all. Celebrating the end of the war, the Trojans brought the giant horse into their city, pulling it through the gates with ropes and wheels. That night they held feasts and danced in the streets. Drunk with joy and wine, they finally went to sleep in peace for the first time in a decade. Inside the horse, Odysseus and his men waited silently. At midnight, when the city was still and the guards had dozed off, the hatch in the horse's belly creaked open. One by one, the Greek soldiers climbed down, crept to the gates, and opened them wide. Outside the city, the Greek fleet had secretly returned under the cover of the darkness. As soon as the gates were opened, the full army stormed inside. The Trojans awoke to fire, shouting, and death. The city that had withstood 10 years of siege fell in a single night. Troy burned, and its proud civilization was destroyed, all because of a cunning trick, a giant wooden horse, and the soldiers that hid inside it. What is the moral of this story? The tale of the Trojan horse warns us that appearances can be deceiving. A seemingly innocent timber horse was the downfall of Troy. Laocoön warned the Trojans not to trust gifts from the enemy, but they did not listen to him. The story warns how pride and hasty decisions can lead to downfall. It reminds us to be cautious of what we bring into our lives, as even the grandest gifts may hide danger inside. The greatest danger may not come from the enemy outside the walls, but the enemy that you invite in. As Western society crumbles, we must step back and look at the enemy we have invited inside our own walls. Lastly, the story illustrates how cunning and cleverness can defeat strength. While the Greeks and Trojans were both strong and brave, and had been locked in a war for 10 long years, it was cleverness, not strength, that defeated the Trojans. Stay strong.